Hi, I'm Maria Buckel, here with D3 Ticker for a small college conversation with Fontbonne University Director of Athletics, Danielle Doerfler. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
So obviously, I know a lot of people have heard the news of Fontbonne closing, so take us through, hopefully there aren't people watching that are going to go through this experience, but these things do happen, especially when higher ed's in crisis. Take us through kind of you finding out the day of the announcement and kind of just how things have transpired since then.
So obviously, I knew shortly before the announcement. We had planned out with the executive leadership team how we were going to do the announcement. Very difficult day, very difficult prepping. And we got through the day, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And I think we did the best that we could, and our leadership team did the best that they could, and same with our faculty and staff and students.
Yeah.
But we had separate meetings, coordinated with the faculty and staff and with the students. And so, it's really just about getting through the day, getting through the media and those type of things, and then taking care of your people. And I think everybody did that. I think people took care of each other. I think leadership team took care of the individuals that were under them. For athletics, it was checking in on my people once I could. I was busy the majority of the day.
Yeah.
And then after that time, I kind of let my staff come to me in the following days.
Yeah.
I had a meeting with the student athletes. I had communication with them. But, after that, I just kind of let everybody grieve. And I think that was important. Yeah. And so I didn't really set a timetable on when I would, kind of start the action of the future, but I definitely gave them some time to grieve. And then, we started setting deadlines and timelines for things. But just an extremely hard day that, yes, nobody wants to go through. But I think that we got through it together and as best as we could as a Fontbonne family. So.
Yeah. I think obviously a lot of tuition-dependent institutions go through, you see the announcement of a closure, and unfortunately, that there are students out there on the positive side that need a home, right? As well as coaches. But so there's just so much outreach, some of which is trying to get the students to their campus too, and like a competitive standpoint. So how did the coaches deal with that shortly after? Because I'm sure the announcement hit and we potentially broke it and then created this storm of phone calls. But how did the coaches, I guess, move through such a difficult time and then shift to trying to, like you said, take care of their students?
We had a plan, of course, for the blanket waiver right away, because I wanted to. I mean, I have gone through the situation where I've seen a closure. You have at another school, and as directors of athletics, we have to do our job.
Yeah.
You respect the institute, but you've got to go after their student athletes. Now, our situation was a little bit different because we were announcing closure in 2025 at the end of the summer, but we're going to conduct athletics. Yeah. So for everybody, I think they kind of, in the outside world, kind of took a pause, like, wait, can we contact the athletes? What's going on here? What should we do? It's an somewhat unnavigated territory.
Yeah.
So we had done the blanket waiver and immediately posted on our website because, I wanted our student athletes to feel like they, from the very announcement of the closure, had a choice.
Yeah.
You can stay at Fontbonne University. These are the things that we're offering you. Yeah. You can play for our athletic teams as long as they come to fruition.
Yeah.
Or you can go to another institute.
Yeah.
So I think that helped the coaches, right? Because they didn't have to worry about the phone call of, can we talk to your kids? What does Danielle say?
Yeah.
So I think after that, our coaches handled it amazingly, to be honest with you. I don't even know how I would have handled it. And I've asked myself that as a coach. What would I have done?
Yeah.
I never heard that our coaches necessarily extravagantly were pressuring these student athletes.
Yeah.
They were just caring about them.
Yeah.
Like, John, what's the best for you?
Yeah.
Maria, what's the best for you? And really just kind of going case by case. And that was without my instruction.
Yeah.
That was immediately boots on the ground. That's what I heard they were doing. I think after that, our conference did a wonderful job. From an administrative standpoint, from Dick, our commissioner, from the coaches within the SLIAC, they didn't headhunt. They could have. It was a blanket waiver. But they did some personal outreach to our coaches, and the schools in the St. Louis area did that too.
Yeah.
It wasn't just within our conference.
Yeah.
So I think the people around us, the other institutes, were very respectful. They made it easy, as easy as possible. And the coaches did a good job of meeting with their student athletes and figuring out what was best for them.
Yeah.
And I think that's all you can do.
Yeah.
And so I think they navigated that well, and they had those conversations pretty quickly with their team.
Yeah. So let's talk through, I mean, you talked about it's a unique situation in that the announcement comes out in March and there's still finish up that semester, but there's 2 more semesters.
Mm-hmm.
I guess what are the conversations that are happening that lead to that, and then to lead to figuring out, are we going to have a season or not?
Right.
And how do you navigate that with the coaches, with the student athletes, and just all of the pieces that come from that, because it is unique.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think from an athletic standpoint, when the grieving got to a point where I felt it was healthy, we immediately said, these are the dates for the fall. We're going to make a decision on this date of fall sports, this date for winter sports, this date for spring. And all of them were before the summertime.
Sure.
Had Zooms or in-person meetings with every single team. I did. After the coach had already. Coaches, I was asking for roster indications right away as soon as we started having these conversations. If someone was going somewhere, I wanted to know where they were going, right? Just so I could track. Had the meetings with the student athletes. We knew right away some of the sports were not going to make it.
Sure.
They were senior loaded.
Yeah.
Sprint football. You need a lot of gentlemen.
Sure.
So, some of them happened fairly quickly.
Yeah.
Others took a little bit of time for us to really have some conversations with the team and the coaches and really just sit in my office and crunch the roster.
Yeah.
But, all of that was just open communication with the student athletes. I had many student athletes that stopped by my office. You're talking about the course of weeks and months this is going on, and student athletes are just stopping by and saying, Danielle, my coach says this. I'm thinking this. What are you thinking? It's almost like you're becoming an agent / advisor for them, because I have no, I have this opportunity over here to offer you, but I want what's best for you. I've coached, I've been an AD, I've recruited, I can kind of navigate. And a lot of our coaches were doing that. And I was very proud of them for that. And so that's just all transpiring. And then once you crunch the numbers and you set that date, then myself and my associate AD, we're sitting down and we're just making a decision. And then we're talking to the president and saying, these are the numbers, what do you think? And so far, those have been smart decisions in my opinion. And I hope that can continue through our spring sports.
Sure. So speaking of the seasons, you all have done some things to try to not only retain faculty and staff, but also to make sure that the student experience on all fronts, whether it's commencement or going through these seasons, are a rich experience for them, for the students that decided to come back. So can you just talk a little bit about those pieces? Yeah,
so from Dr. Blattner, our president, down, those conversations started early with all of them of, if we're going to move forward with this, just as an institute, let alone as athletic, what can we do to make it the best experience? Because if I'm a student athlete and I hear this announcement, I'm instantly thinking Fontbonne has no money and my experience is going to be terrible. Budgets are going to be tight. We're not going to travel anywhere. We're not going to do anything. We're not going to have gear. All the things that student athletes should and do care about. So, from an administrative standpoint, they've done a great job of trying to retain the faculty and staff. Whether it be taking a look at benefits, whether it be taking a look at, a salary increase, Fridays off, right? We've had a bunch of social gatherings, more than you would normally have, right? Those type of things matter,
Sure.
Taking care of people and taking care of their families, getting together and saying we're all in this together is huge. So, they've done that athletic-wise. We've tried to do the same thing. Dr. Blattner and I and the leadership team talked early about what about taking extended trips? Every student athlete loves going somewhere. What about talking to the coaches and saying, let's go find a team to play outside of the norm of where we might go normally, and let's sell that. And let's make sure the student athletes know about it this summer. So we were selling that over the summertime. I was speaking to student athletes all the time in those meetings, explaining to them, I promise you, take my word for it, your budgets are going to be the exact same.
Yeah.
The same experience you had at Fontbonne when you came here as a sophomore, you're now going to have as a senior. And so those extended trips have been great.
Yeah.
We have some more coming up in the
Yeah.
spring. And being able to spend some time and having Dr. Blattner travel with us and her husband, having myself travel, having our coaches travel and their
Yeah.
loved ones, it's been great. And I think that it's meant a lot to the student athletes to go some places that maybe themselves and their family have not been yet. So.
Yeah, it's amazed me from our conversations. I know I said whenever you first said you were going to take these trips, because I'm like, oh my gosh, as a former AD, I'm going, you have no real hold over these students anymore, and how do you make sure there aren't shenanigans essentially on the trips? And you've said that the student athletes have really answered and been respectful, and just so happy to hear that, because I know that is the things that keep you up at night as an athletic director, worrying about the what ifs. But talk a little bit about how the coaches have had to adjust their roles, because obviously it's the last season, as well as the staff. I mean, yourself too, being really present, in what your current role is, while knowing you're on the market for a job, because there is an end date to this. So how do you make sure that you're really mindful to be present, but also adjusting to the changing situation?
Well, if anybody wants to hire our coaches, they need to call me, because they've been put through a lot. I mean, I think this is those things that we can't put on a resume. They've had to take on extra job duties, of course, and we all do that, but they've been a little bit different job duties. They've had to take a look at their teams, those that have had teams, and become, like I said, the agent, right? How many years of eligibility does this student athlete have? Are they done at Fontbonne, or are they leaving to go to another school? They have, in a good way, been able to develop really, really close relationships with their teams, because the numbers are smaller. They've been able to do a lot of skill development. They've been able to practice 3 to 4 times a week instead of 5 or 6, because you don't have the bodies to do it. And that's frustrating too. Don't get me wrong. It hasn't all been, lollipops and rainbows right now. But I think that they've held on to the positives, and being able to have a smaller roster and have a tighter experience with the team, help their student athletes go to graduate school, or be able to go on to another school is a little bit different for them. And then taking on the extra job duties. We also have done a better job even than what we have before of supporting each other, trying to get people to go to each other's games. The coaches who have stayed on who did not have teams, that was another thing that Fontbonne did to take care of their people. We set end dates for everyone, and it didn't matter if your team came to fruition or not. The administration was allowing you to have a job until this point. And I think that was amazing. I think it's still amazing. And so some of our coaches were still there at the start of the year that did not have teams. Okay. And so for those individuals, it's all hands on deck. It's doing things for me or for somebody else. And then we all have been navigating trying to find a job, you know. So I tell my staff all the time, whether you put me down on as a reference or not, I would hope you would, but let me know where you're going. And they've done an incredible job of just sending me a text, hey, I'm on campus here. I'm Zooming with this university. They've landed on their feet, a lot of them. And again, we have some that have not found a job yet because they're still in their season, or they haven't even had their season yet. So, but good people, they've definitely done a great job of acclimating to something that none of us are prepared for. So.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about wearing a lot of different hats and taking on different roles, and I think that obviously for those that are watching that don't know, I was at Fontbonne for 12 years, and you and I worked closely together and had a unique reporting structure, because I was serving as VP but had oversight of multiple different areas across campus, and then promoted you to Director of Athletics because I said, you've been doing the job, essentially. What recommendations would you have, setting the closure aside, though I think that you can talk about the closure as well, of like just how you would advice you'd give to those that are being asked to do more, and how do you assess where to set your boundaries in those situations, especially whenever you know that the institution is fragile, because there were plenty of times that our staff was, moving a lot of things, I'll just say.
Yeah, literally moving a lot of things. Yeah, that's a hard one, because I think both you and I have had our own struggles of, how much is too much, setting boundaries, saying no, because on the reverse side of things, you and I are both passionate about our careers and who we've worked for, and, you want to learn those sides of the job, right? So, selfishly, I want to learn how to be more involved with facilities. How can I be more involved, and have oversight over marketing, let's say. So I think that it's a double-edged sword, because my advice personally is I think that it's made me a stronger administrator. The different things that I've had to navigate, both at my time at McMurray and my time at Fontbonne, you always get a hat added to you. My advice would be that, that's a positive thing, that you need to take a look at what does it give back to you first. And I don't always do that myself. I often look at what does it give back to the Institute. And we need to look at what does it give back to ourselves first. But either way, look at both. Are you helping the Institute by taking on this hat? Does it help you on your resume? Does it help you advance yourself? And then also, I think we need to make sure it doesn't shortchange our job, right? So I'm a director of athletics. And I think when I look at other hats I've taken, I've got to be very careful that that's not taking away from this position over here, because then your people are going to be unhappy. But my advice would be, I think people need to understand that at the Division III level, I don't know how you don't do some of that. I've ran into very few administrators who have not had to take on something during their career, and coaches as well. So be open to it, but you got to say no and set boundaries for sure at some point.
Along those lines, how are you going about navigating your next opportunity, right? And I think that I've spoken to several people here at the NCAA Convention that say, how is life off campus, sort of thing, and ask about, because they're thinking about either transitioning off campus or transitioning to another campus. And I think that it's something that people struggle with. How do you really, you just, in these roles, you have your head down and you're just working your tails off, to where, how have you been able to really frame, this is what I'm looking for, and these are the opportunities, and balancing all of that?
For the future?
Yeah, for the future.
Yeah, I think, I'm starting to. I think that you bury your head quickly when the closure happens, to really make sure that we're taken care of as a department. But no, I think it's in your head all the time. For me, myself, we all know the cycle of, whether it be a number one or a number two position, a commissioner position, whatever positions are out there, it's starting to be the time, right? And so I have, the background in being the number two, and now in, thankful to you, being the number one. Just having conversations with everybody about the difference between one and two, which is quite comical, for people who've been in it. But I think that I am passionate about Division III athletics. And that's not to take anything away from the other divisions, but you can look at my resume and say, this is where she spent the last almost 16 years. She's been a coach, she's been an administrator. That's where my passion is, and that's where I want to stay. An ideal position for me is something that is deep into Division III athletics, and there are a lot of opportunities that are within that, and that's where I'm trying to look, and that's where I'm trying to have the networking, and that's where you're also, I talk to coaches all the time about relationships, right? For sure. And we talk about networking, and everybody gets tired of hearing about it, but when you don't have a job, or you're not going to have a job, and not by choice. You talk about it's the breakup that you didn't want to happen, right? It's different. It really is, because, I've been searching for jobs to advance myself and because I wanted to, right?
Yeah.
You look at leaving McMurray and coming to Fontbonne. I left before the closure of McMurray and wanted to advance my career. Now it's a little bit different situation.
Yeah.
You have to go find a job.
Yeah.
And so networking relationships,
Yeah.
What arguments have you picked? What fights have you picked? What do people think about you, right?
Yeah.
I hope it was good arguments that you got into, right? Because you want people to respect
Yeah.
you. And that work has been done.
Yeah.
Your resume, your cover letter
Yeah.
is going to get you a certain way, and the rest is just relationships and networking. So
Yeah.
spending a lot of time doing that too.
Yeah. No, I mean, I've known you from your time at McMurray ever since I think you were at McMurray before I came to Fontbonne. And I mean, you've always been one that is advocating for the students first and your people first. And so even in those moments, I know that you're going to find where your next place is, and I'm confident. And I know that whomever gets to have you on at their institution will see the value and see the positives that come out of having you there, because I've seen it. So
Thank you.
kind of my last question is like, what has just surprised you? What did you just not see coming with the closure?
That's a good question. Well, people want a lot of things, and I don't blame them for that. If my institute was closing and I was an alum, I think there would be certain things that I would want. Those have been a lot. Those have really come rolling in. And I don't think I really guessed at the magnitude at which we would get those requests. We have a great system for it, and no one is taking anything until we're done. But I have a lot of requests from athletic alums, for particular things. I think outside of that, we've done a good job of navigating the compliance side of things. We got on a call with Corey very early on. We've talked to the NCAA. We've talked to our kids about the transfer portal and those that have eligibility left. Tracers, right?
Yeah.
And paperwork and those type of things. So I don't know that there's anything that has majorly surprised me. I just think that the magnitude of the amount of requests you get for certain things, I didn't quite expect. And I think on a positive side, I expected our coaches and student athletes to be great. Knock on wood, so far, they've rose above that. I don't know if it's because, if you think about it, the student athletes that are back right now on our teams want to be there.
Yeah.
They have to be.
Yeah.
Why else would you come back?
Yeah.
They want to be there. They want to
Yeah.
finish their degree. There's a reason they came back to Fontbonne this year.
Yeah.
And you can see that because we've had some struggles, we've had some successes on the court and on the field. So they've impressed me as well.
Yeah.
And the level at which our faculty and staff have come together has been very impressive to me. Again, I'm not saying it's the lollipops and rainbows, but it's pretty dang good for a university that's trying to navigate something extremely difficult that the 99.9% of us have never done before.
Yeah.
And we're trying to do it the right way. And that comes from our president, and we all try to do it on a daily basis, and I think we've done a good job. So.
Yeah. No, looking from the outside in, I mean, and hearing from a lot of people, I think you guys have handled it as well as you possibly could. I mean, you hear some of the horror stories of like, there's just a sign posted, or you're told you've got a couple days, and or that there is no compliance director, and then these students are having to figure out, even at the institution they're going to, how do you piece together somebody's eligibility when there's nobody there to tell you if they had hardship waivers or if they were in good standing or things of that nature. So I applaud you and applaud the rest of the staff and the leadership team, because these aren't easy situations, as you said, and I think especially a lot of people don't understand the weight that comes with leadership to start with. Because there's just so many things that you often know about that other people don't know about that are going on behind the scenes, or that possibly might be coming down the road. But this one just hits on such a greater degree because of the amount of people that are impacted to a significant level. So I thank you for your selfless leadership throughout this, and definitely wish you wish you well in the future,
Thanks.
and look forward to following where you go next and what you're doing.
Thanks.
So.
Stay tuned.